Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Good morning, kids and cubs, and superstar. Oh my god, that was bad, wasn't it? ah, I got off to such a good start too on the production. Everything went well to put the countdown and all that kind of stuff, and then after that, it just went right off the rails. ah, Good morning, kids and cubs, and welcome to the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah. Today, recording day is Tuesday, January 21st, the day after 2025. And it is still a cold day here at the Beaver Lodge, but nothing like other parts of the region are getting. So I will not say anything more about that. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns EM. Hey, Mr. Beaver A. And not with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, although I do see him in the chat, not feeling at his best today. And again, self-care. So you have me all to yourself today. Um, Apologies for the late start. The programming actually went rather smoothly. That part, unlike last time, um, just there is so much news, and given that I had to rearrange a few things, I needed a couple of extra minutes here this morning. But we are together, and definitely have a show for you. So. And this one might be a little fun. So I hope I will have made it worth the wait. So I thank you for your indulgence and your patience. But I know that the damn fama talks in the chat there. Um, a big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. I believe this is episode 562 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Everything is not in the usual order today, but I think I hit all the notes. My mental health, how's it doing today? Actually, pretty darn good, all things considering. Um, I didn't. I did watch the inauguration because, I do things so that you don't have to. So I did do that, but I didn't do that until later yesterday evening. So actually had a good day, by the way. Your Beaver Lodge curling report. We won the first match of the new round with my men senior team yesterday. We started 3-0 down, but we were up 5-3 two ends later, and we just never looked back from there. So a nice, good, complete game. And I played very, very, very well. So very proud of myself. And then later that evening, my beaver sweetie and I went out for dinner. We had a date night. So I had a beautiful day. And then I came home and then watched the inauguration stuff. So I had heard a little bit before and seen a couple of things, going through social media, but actually saw it. The Kit Lindam here says, I watched the inauguration too. I want to know the enemy. Exactly. Um, but I put it this way: I know it's the big political news story of the day, worldwide, and well, I mean, this is a political show, and everybody, because he likes to be talked about, and he does all these things and says a lot of things, and to get tongues wagging, to get cameras on him and column inches printed about him. I mean, that's really what he's about. He wants to see his name in lights. So, you know, there's a lot to react to, and I'm really trying to take an attitude of, not reacting. I'd really love to have a government say one day, Trump said this. Well, yes, but we understand that, but Mr. Trump says a lot of things until there's actually something concrete on the table. We have no reaction, and then just move on with your life. Because this jumping every time he says something outrageous is it's exhausting, right? And you have to manage that because you can't have a reaction, you can't have a response, something to give every time he says something because he says so much. I mean, you know, you'll cut off a fingertip, and then you'll cut off a knuckle, and then you cut off a finger, and then you'll cut off a hand, and then you'll cut off a wrist, and then and then until he gets it all, right? So I mean, at some point, you have to realize that you just can't start cutting because that's not a path that's going to lead anywhere good. And the more you cut, the more you encourage and embolden them. So it would just be really nice to not give the world's biggest attention whore, pardon the language, and no offense to actual uh, people in the sex trade industry who actually provide an essential and useful service, unlike this guy. Uh, so I put it sort of in its proper place for me, right? I if this is going to be happening for the next 4 years, I can't be waking up every morning and going, "Oh my God, this is what Trump did." I mean, it has to just like it's there, right? Until there's actually really something to worry about. It's there. No, that doesn't mean don't pay attention, don't prepare, and stuff like that. But you know, in the, we can't stop living because this guy has just decided to show up, right? We have to deal with him, yes, but we also can't stop living. We can't stop being ourselves. So, because he wants us to become him, right? So that's the for some of us, that's just not on. So, right? So we have to, mind, body, soul, all of it. We have to manage it because it's going to be, we are going to be tested. Let's just put it that way. So, um, hmm. So I'm going to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it later in the show rather than making the first thing because um, oh, Mr. Grizzly here actually has a good comment there that I do want to read in here before I do move on. It goes, hold on, where is it? I'm just going to raise it up because right now the camera's in my view here. I watched a lot. Oh, darn. I watched a lot too much of the swearing in live. It was surreal while awaiting news of my friend's passing, which happened yesterday. A weird, sad day for this. I can't see the word. For this fox and many others. Um, Yeah, actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Mr. Grizzly, because uh, there was a passing in my circle as well that I found out about someone very important. Um, so i- interesting that we both had something like that on the same day. Again, it says a weird sad day for this fox and many others. So I don't know if that's um, Mademoiselle Fox writing under Mr. Grizzly's thing there in the chat. Um, all right. In Canada, before we get to him, there's some very interesting things that are happening. It's relatively quiet political day for all intents and purposes. Um, hmm, but while we're talking liberal leadership race, and we will talk about that more later this week when Mr. Grizzly gets here, we will go into Karina Gould and Christopher Freeland's launches, and I'm going to take a moment to actually rewatch Christopher Freeland's launch because I was admittedly tired when I did watch it, so I'll watch it with fresh eyes. Um, but yeah, I still have the impression that overall, even if I take out um, the interruptions for all those protests, that it was a bit disappointing. But I will rewatch it with fair eyes just in case before I bring you full analysis of it. But with regard, so all that is going on, and that's getting a lot of attention and will right now because Pierre doesn't really control the agenda at the moment. Like I said, it must be killing him, but he's not controlling the agenda at the current moment. But what is happening um, on the conservative side of the spectrum is that things are shifting and moving in such a way that Pierre Poilièvre is finding himself pretty much in a situation in which he can't win at all, um, which is kind of interesting. Uh, and I was just thinking about things yesterday, and it kind of struck me that if I had, you know, how I've been criticizing the quality of our journalism here in Canada, and I've been criticizing it not, you know, for fun like this, and not for uh, just to be contrary or to, you know, raise some anger or chase clicks or whatnot. But there is a quality in the quality of the questions, right? They're not precise enough. They're not sharp enough. They're not about the right things, right? Um, I saw a comment this morning. I think it was by Courtney Terrio. I think it was who was stated whether it's this, and he was talking about uh, the Mark Carney in his launch, but he goes, whether it's this, Carney on the Daily Show, Polyev with Peterson, etc. Too many politicians seem to be enjoying creating safe spaces to present their best selves. I have more respect for politicians who don't hide or dance around legit reporters or questions. Agree, in one sense, but I don't think these things are necessarily equivalent because while The Daily Show is seen as a safe space because it is a progressive show, right? Um, and therefore, if you're a progressive person, people will just look at it and that's where the analysis stops. Um, it's possible to flop on The Daily Show. Some people have flopped on The Daily Show. It's not like Jon Stewart hasn't made news more than once by asking an incisive or rather tough question in a casual setting that maybe somebody was not ready for. It's not like Jon Stewart hasn't been passionate about a few topics somewhere along the way, right? There's a different atmosphere than in a normal news setting or a scrum when you go to the Daily Show. Um, and yes, there are some fluff questions and some are formulated, you know, like the whole thing, the whole song and dance, and the whole dance, this whole comedy bit that they were doing about a relationship, whatnot. But the content of it was still meaningful. There was some substance there, right? Just because you are able to put a comedic twist or play with something doesn't mean that the underlying material isn't serious because it doesn't have quality to it or substance to it. So there's a difference between going how would I put it? That's not the case for Poilièvre with Peterson. There was no way that Peterson was gonna ask him a question that was going to be anywhere controversial for Pierre, right? On the Daily Show, that can happen. So there is a bit of a difference. And then there's a difference between running to a safe space and then going to an outlet that is willing to let one talk and then actually engage with the material one is bringing rather than coming here and then delivering their material and then having somebody ask them questions about something completely other than what they came there to do or to get their reaction to something or someone. I mean, think about it. You spend a month and a half preparing a housing policy, you come and give a press conference on it, and the first question is about somebody said that you're this. What do you say to them? Where do you want to give your media time? To that or to somebody that says, in this thing, you said this. I'm going to challenge you on this. That's a discussion somebody might be willing to have. Or tell me more about this. How does this work? Why do you believe this? What is this founded in? Can you give me examples of where this has been used before and has worked well? What are the risks? Actually engage with the material. Somebody doesn't master the material or they're blowing sunshine up your butt, you're going to have plenty of material afterwards. I mean, we just saw it with Christy Clark. She was asked a rather straightforward question. She didn't have an answer, and they had a juicy, meaty story. They didn't have to invent anything. Or just if you engage with the material and someone is not up on it or trying to pull a fast one on you, eventually a good journalist will find that through quality questioning. So, I mean, you have to ask both. But maybe people are just more interested in going in venues where they want to talk about the subject matter than the soap opera. Maybe. Maybe the balance isn't right. You still have to ask about the soap opera because how you manage feelings and emotions and people and all that kind of stuff is a big part of politics. But maybe the balance is off. Maybe that's why they're going somewhere else. Uh, Just a hypothesis. Right? So getting back to Pierre, he has had 2 major press availabilities. I think there's been a couple of other little things. I saw he was, asked something again the other day, and there was a clip of him, and again, just not impressive in any way. Um, and he has shown a frightening inability to pivot. Everyone is Justin Trudeau. Everyone is carbon tax someone, so much so that people now on social media are changing their handles to carbon tax whatever, um, to mock him because it's just so silly. I mean, it's like there's a guy south of the border that presents himself as an existential threat. You go into hiding for 3 days, is and you're pivoting that you show how you're going to respond to that is to say one line about like Canada never being the 51st state and then calling everybody carbon something. And no matter who it is that wins, I'm going to be fighting Justin Trudeau because everybody's Justin Trudeau. I mean, gee, tell the world, right? That you prepared for one assignment and one assignment only and absolutely no contingencies and that you have nothing for changing situation. He's still calling for a carbon tax election. He's not getting that. He's still calling for it. So he's showing an inability to pivot. He's showing an inability to talk off script. He's showing an ability to think on his feet. The question that he was asked yesterday, uh, was one of those things where he was asked and uh, lots of stuttering and stammering and couldn't really get a full cogent idea out. And again, talking on his feet, not very good at it. And there are some questions that he's not being asked yet that if he were asked them, um, he would be in a lot of trouble because of the way that the pieces are being moved on the chessboard on the conservative side of things, which is very interesting. So I was wondering when I was looking at all these factions and how the things were moving, um, if I was a journalist, well, what would I ask? You know, what are four? He, he always gives about four questions, right? So I would like to see a situation one day where journalists get together and say, okay, we've all got only four questions. Here's what they would be. The first one, Mr. Poilièvre, your former boss. Ha, on the former, maybe. Stephen Harper recently was very clear in a video about his views on now President Trump. Yes or no, do you agree with his position? Question two. Your ideological similar in the province of Alberta, Premier Daniel Smith, wants to take oil and gas off the table. Do you oppose, yes or no, specifically either export tariffs and or flow restrictions on Canadian energy to the US? Three, your ideological similar in Ontario Premier Doug Ford says all players should be putting Canada first and any other issue second. Yes or no, do you agree with him? And if so, what specifically have you done since party leaders and the Prime Minister met to help Team Canada avoid tariffs? And question four. Every party leader so far has expressed a rather fleshed out position as to where they stand with regard to now President Trump's threat of union by economic force. Please share with Canadians your full position on this issue and how it is you will firmly make it clear to President Trump. Those would be the four questions. And I have a feeling that he would have a very, very hard time answering them in any way that is substantive because there is no way you can answer any one of those questions without pissing off someone in the conservative sort of alliance or alliance of factions that make up the movement. There's no way, right? The first question puts Pierre Poilievre in a situation of saying whether or not he agrees with what Stephen Harper said in that video or not. If he answers yes, what about all of his Make America Great cap wearing base? How do they react to that? They don't like people who are impure. They don't like the slightest lack of show of loyalty. And if he doesn't side with Harper, what about all the conservatives who are sort of a little bit more in that lane that they still believe Harper to be in? For example, like the one that would, uh, you know, that didn't really want to talk anything about, didn't want anybody in his MPs to just not talk anything about abortion, that type of stuff, even though he believed it because it was just not a way to win. He knew it. I mean, for all the things, um, Harper was terrible at. The one thing that he was somewhat good at was controlling, to a certain extent, the bozo eruption faction of the party. Um, he can't please both by answering that question. The second one goes to the sort of more convoy crowd, right? The Alberta, Justin Trudeau, everything he does is terrible. Um, if he doesn't side with Danielle, he loses them. But if he sides with Danielle, does he lose all actual sort of progressive conservatives? Because now he's no longer on Team Canada, right? He's on Team Danielle. And since Danielle went first, well, then it makes it look like Danielle's leading the charge and he's dancing to the tune that she's calling. So she's the boss, really, which makes him look weak. So he can't answer that question either now, can he? And then the third one about Doug Ford. Well, we all know that Doug Ford doesn't really like Pierre Poilièvre much, and it looks like Doug Ford really, really, really wants to go to an election early, which is something that's going to screw Pierre Poilièvre over big time. But Doug Ford is really making some news out there, saying, you know, uh, I have a man. I need a mandate. I need one really bad, really, really bad. These things that Trump is doing, you know, I thought we were family, folks, but well, family doesn't do that. That's not family. That's not friendship. I might need to get tough. I need a mandate for that. You actually don't need a mandate for that, Doug. That's actually your job. During the course of your job, if someone becomes a threat, your job is to respond to it. You don't need a mandate for that. What Danielle is doing is something she needs a mandate for. If she's going to adopt a secessionist sort of attitude or choose the United States or Trump over Canada type attitude, nobody in Alberta voted on that or for that. That's the type of thing you need a mandate for. This, you don't need a mandate for, Doug. So, why does he want it? That's probably a whole other episode. Might have something to do with the fact that it seems that um, he does have to give access to his phone records now or something like that, which is, we might have more on that on a future show. But if he wants to go now, as we mentioned on a previous show, that makes it way harder for Pierre to get that spring election that he so desperately wants, right? I mean, he went to a mic and asked, he said, the prime minister, you know, I know, I, no, he didn't say I know, but it was like, the prime minister went to the microphone and said he would be stepping down when there was a new neoliberal leader, but that wasn't good enough for Pierre, right? In his first presser, he went out there and said, I guess that's why I demand that the prime minister do the one thing that he can do and doesn't have to rely on cabinet for that whatsoever. He can just go to the governor general's office right now and just lie down and say, I give up, I capitulate, just hand it to Pierre now. Yes, you got conservative pundits on one hand going on Power and Politics says, I can't believe the prime minister decided that he was going to step aside once there was a new liberal leader now leaving us in a leaderless vacuum. We actually have a functioning government right now with the prime minister that dealt with these people the last time being here should tariffs come to be on the receiving that. They would rather we actually be in an election where we be in caretaker mode, where we would be as vulnerable as they claim we are now. So that's the really effed up Jedi mind trick with these people, right? They're going to the cameras and say, "My God, we are leaderless. Put us in an election now where we actually go into a caretaker government mode as the tariffs could be announced." The thing that they say that we are, which is an awful terrible thing, so terrible that it requires an election, will create the situation that they say is so terrible for which we need an election. That's how utterly shameless they are. It's something else. Okay. So this guy, if Doug Ford goes now, in the largest province of the country, where there are the most seats in the federal election, all the conservative apparatus is going to be out there and going full tilt to get Doug another mandate. That's a lot of work. You're exhausted after that. And then summer's about to come. People like their summer. We might, we could be getting, if Doug Ford goes now, late summer, early fall election, all of a sudden, time is not Pierre's friend. That's a lot of extra time for him to try to skate while not answering the question if he's okay with putting oil on the table. It might, hey, situation might even have to come up where we have to put oil on the table in that time. How does none of this is good for him. There's a reason he wants to go now. So you got Doug Ford musing aloud about wanting to go now. Got this here in a QP briefing. He's out there. It's if you have a chance to read it, Barbara Patrochinio in a QP briefing. I'll see if I can work it in here later on in the show, because I just don't want to lose my flow with this one. But I'll bring it up and hopefully I will get back to it, or maybe you kids can remind me to read you the Doug Ford thing. All right, so you got Doug Ford doing that, but you also have Doug Ford, which is the thing with which he made news last time, taking the lead as head of the Council of the Federation and pretty much outright calling Danielle Smith out. And he doubled down on that. He went to some other event afterwards and was asked about it again. He doubled down on it. Right? There's time to put Canada first. So while Pierre is not able, because he's been asked 3 times, to say that oil is on the table, he cannot say that if he was prime minister, that he would lead Canada into a negotiation with the United States without tying one hand behind our back, without removing our biggest weapon from the table. He can't say it. And he has not been able to say it 3 times. Doug Ford has sure as fuck been able to say it. He threatened way long ago to turn off the just to turn off the tap for hydro power. Doug Ford has had no problem saying it. Pierre can't say it. And Danny's taken the complete opposite position. Danny and Doug are pulling in 2 different directions in this tug of war. And Pierre's got to pick one side. If he picks Doug Ford, the more progressive conservatives, he loses all the Westerners to the PPC. Max Burney is just sitting there. Max Burney must be the happiest guy in politics right now. Yeah, all he has to do is sit back and wait. Literally all he's got to do is sit back and wait. Oh my God. Pardon me. So the conservatives have vacated the center right when the PPC came about, because these are committed voters and committed donors, and they didn't want to lose that sweet, sweet cash. Then they didn't want the right to be as divided as the left is. Right? NDP liberal. NDP has a solid, always at least 16, 17, 18% share. That changes things, right? If the PPC was similar, the conservatives would probably never form government again. Right? So they can't have that. So they really chased that vote to try to keep that in the House. Well, now here comes Doug Ford sliding up, saying, hey, all that traditional progressive conservative space that you vacated because you decided to go chase the right, I'm happy to occupy that. So now all of a sudden, Pierre is in a situation where no matter where he says, he can lose votes to the slight left of him if Doug Ford becomes an option, and to the slight right of him, or to the way right of him, to the PBC, if he makes other choices. There's no way that he cannot answer. There's no way that he can answer any one of those first three questions, whether or not he agrees with Stephen Harper, Danielle Smith, or Doug Ford, all in one press conference, side by side, and have answers that are consistent with each other. That doesn't provoke some type of shit show among those four various factions within the conservative movement. The traditional progressive conservatives, sort of the Western separatists, the real hardcore libertarians, right? And then, sorry, the fourth one kind of escaped me off the top of my head. Um, oh yeah, and the traditional Harper sort of conservatives, not really traditional conservatives, but within this new version of the conservative movement, because Pierre is a different flavor and color of Harper than Harper. Still Harper, but a different flavor and color. Harper's a very much a not don't rock the boat conservative, progressive incrementalism, and Pierre Poilièvre is burn it all down. Right, it's two different modes. But he's going to have to pick some sides soon. So this is not good for him. All this maneuvering that's happening. Also not good for him. And I know people groan when I say polls. I understand that. I'm fine with that. But as I tell you, when I look for polls, first of all, I always look at the aggregators. Number one. Two, but I look for trends. Specifically trends. And there is something that could be happening. According to 338, and there are various pollsters out there. But there are some that are starting to indicate a swing, depending on when it is that they were taken, because there's a lot of them that are coming out that are the time periods are still a little off. But Ecos polling firm, so this one has a B plus rating, so not necessarily among the most reputable, but they have shown the Liberals going from 19% support since December 18th to 26% support on January 7th to 28% support on January 15th, with the margin of separation for the Conservatives going from plus 25 to plus 16 to plus 11. So that would be a 14-point tightening in the numbers since December 18th. Main Street Research is another company that has put out some polling. They have an A minus, and on December 16th, they had the Conservatives with a lead of 29 points. That was the highest lead, I think, recorded out of all the polls ever. But Main Street had shown that the Conservatives had never, ever, 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 ever been higher. Oh, no, sorry. I'm mistaken. I'm just looking at the one before saying 30. Okay. So 30 and 29. Yes, up from 24. So 24 at the end of September, and then all the way up to 30, and then 29. And they maintained that for a little bit. Well, now Main Street Research is showing the spread at 19, which is a 10-point decrease. So a little 14-point decrease in one, I think it is, 11-point decrease in the other, but they're showing the Liberals at 26. Now, this one is still showing the Conservatives at 45, whereas Ecos is showing the Conservatives at 39. Um, but both of these are showing growth. Abacus hasn't shown growth yet based on their last one, but that data may not include Canadians having had time yet to talk about Mark Carney's launch and appearance on the Daily Show and that kind of stuff. But that's a big enough swing. That's a big enough swing to be statistically meaningful. Um, and if the Liberals can find a way to get themselves a little more time, let's say by Doug Ford calling an early election in Ontario, I'm starting to wonder if Trudeau and Doug Ford are working together. I just there's nothing wondering. Um, but yeah, that's so you have the race clearly tightening, which seems to be tightening. If people start liking what they see, because here's the question, right? With the polls dropping so much for the prime minister, was it really that Canadians were tired of the Liberals and really wanted the Conservatives? Because that's what the polling shows in terms of if you're asking about parties. Or could it be possible? Could it be possible that maybe Canadians just had Trudeau fatigue? And given Pierre's net negatives and positives were net negative, and they were pretty high. So it doesn't show a particular enthusiasm for the leader, even though there's a big swing in the party, right? I mean, there's a poll that was showing that the Conservatives had a 30-point lead. So is that just a nation screaming to someone, get out for sakes? But not necessarily, we want the Conservatives. And maybe Canadians are just looking for a nice, normal, decent, competent, quiet, lets the work make news but doesn't personally seek to make too much news, reliable person that they can leave unsupervised with a pack of matches and they know they'll be fine. But not Trudeau. Definitely not Pierre. Because if all Canadians really want is some just like down the middle guy in whom they can have confidence, who is competent and knows a thing or two about about economics and money, uh, Pierre might be in trouble. Now, of course, this bounce back could just be uh, the portion of liberals that had decided that they were going to vote for the couch returning because things are sort of interesting now and maybe there's a little hope. So there's we don't know what to read into these numbers, what's motivating it, but there does seem to be a jump back. And at this point, if the lead really is something like 11 or 12 for the Conservatives, it's still tough to do, but it becomes an upcoming election that suddenly is winnable. There's a path, right? Um, and they seem to be organizing their cabinet to show that they are a party that intends to win, not just try to save the furniture. All the moves they've been making sends that message very loud and clear. So the Liberals are not planning on rolling over at the moment. If Doug Ford does go to an early election and Mark Carney over time starts gaining confidence in the eyes of Canadians as someone who is that, you know, smart, stable, competent person, you know, who will manage the economy relatively well and not make too many other waves, I don't know what Pierre's got for that, especially if things start to get like really weird south of us. And people, again, more time for that to take hold is more time for people to go, oh God, we don't want a slice of that. So, and the more the now president of the United States does, and the more there's a camera in Pierre Poilievre's face that asks him, what he thinks about these types of things and what he would do if he was prime minister. There's only so long you can turn around and say, "But I'm not prime minister," right? Or that's a hypothetical. At some point, you got to start answering. And every time something happens, he won't have the luxury of going into hiding for 3 or 4 days to come up to prepare a strategy to come up and basically tell us he doesn't have one. So he can't pivot, can't think on his feet, can't think on the fly. Uh, is terrible off script. Is terrible in a normal question and answer session, especially if a journalist asks him a particularly inconvenient question. Um, he's prickly and abrasive to start with. He's pretty anti-charismatic to start with. People don't really have a favorable impression of him going into this. And he happens to lead a coalition of factions that are very, very, very angry and absolutely need their leaders to be ideologically pure. And we just saw what happened in the United States once I don't know where they shipped Vivek off to, by the way, when they started talking about H-1B visas. So, yeah. And then comes the general election where Pierre someone's going to have to somewhat try to pivot to the middle. And how many people will he lose then? So, yeah, Operation Keep Pierre Talking appears to be working. If we can get the October election like we had planned, and the Liberals have that competent leader, and Trump keeps messing things up, and Pierre can't keep on taking a stance as tough against Trump as Doug Ford and other leaders are doing, because he doesn't want to piss off the Maple MAGA base because they're guaranteed votes and they donate often and a lot. Um, I think he's in more trouble than people have let on. And with all the big stories going on, people haven't noticed the chessboard. But somebody's going to have to start asking them questions at some point. I mean, they're already asking questions about the oil, and it's 3 times he's not been able to answer it. And that's why, in my formulation of the question, when I said yes or no, do you agree with Danielle Smith? Do you oppose, yes or no, specifically either export tariffs or flow restrictions on Canadian energy to the US? Because he's been getting out of that one saying, well, we don't we don't get much US oil and gas to tariff anyway, so that wouldn't be a thing. So ask specifically about, and you will notice that in 3 of the 4 questions, um, yes or no, will in there, because these are yes or no questions. Do you agree with Harper's position? Do you agree with Smith's position? Do you agree with Ford's position? And you can't agree with all 3 of them at the same time. Oh God. Somebody just needs to ask them. Just ask them the questions. So yeah, I believe he is fucked. In much in the way that Tom Mulcair was fucked back in 2015 when he approved the Sherbrooke Declaration and really was going hard on daycare for all of Canada, which was good. Yes, but at that particular time was not gonna add any real benefit for Quebec because they were already there. And the whole point of supporting the Sherbrooke Declaration was to make sure he kept Quebec, but then his number one social policy platform had nothing for Quebec in it. Like this, and then he was gonna go to the rest of go through campaign through the rest of Canada, hoping that no one would ask him, "So do you really believe that 50% plus 1 vote is enough to break up Canada?" And have to say yes, because he supported the Sherbrooke Declaration, and then watch his fortunes throughout all of Canada just flop, or say no, and then watch his fortunes all throughout Quebec flop, and not really get anything in Canada because Canada will have realized that he said one thing in French and a different thing in English. And nothing kills you in Canada more than deux langues, deux discours. There was no way he could win with the policy positions. When he was talking about them individually in silo, like Pierre does about housing and whatnot, oh yeah, okay, sounded great. But when you put them all together in one platform, they don't go together. So Pierre has a lot of that, but he has it some in his policy. He has a lot in his policies, but he has it in the factions and how forceful a position he can take. And back in the day when there was only the Conservative Party, well, you could take a not forceful position who was going to challenge you. But in this era of micro identity and purity politics, purity testing politics, you don't have that option now, right? You have to be all in with us or you're not with us. And we see it like not only in this movement, but in a lot of other movements too. If you try to be the person down the road that says, "Hey, listen, you know, I understand this, but I've got to be a government for everyone, so I can't be all in on your side, or and I can't be all in on the others. I have to take a middle path." Because, well, then you're wishy washy, or you're a wimp, or you're this, or you know you say you're not, but you're allowing it, you're enabling it. All the accusations, right? It happens. So when you're doing purity politics and you start down that road by making decisions that put the first priority on not losing the votes of certain people and not losing the donations of certain people, of your most fervent and most loyal donors and voters. But that particular group also makes it very difficult or near impossible for you to court uh, anything near the center. Once you start down that path, once you start validating the arguments, once you start playing into that, once you start feeding off the adulation you get when you hear the applause, and then you say, "Oh, well, that's working for me and doing more." Once you start throwing more red meat, once you know, have private meetings with them and let them know that yes, absolutely, you're on their side, and then you take one little step the other way, you didn't meet expectations, and you know how online works. Holy hell gets unleashed. Um, that's why it's almost more important more than ever now than to play the long game. To play the long game in politics than to chase the short payoff, because everything's documented, everything comes back, and there's no lack of people that are willing to twist whatever you say in a world where a lot of people want to be a star, and a lot of people become a star by hitching their wagon to yours and trying to take you down. Probably better to play the long game. not to create all these other opportunities. So yeah, I don't. I don't know. I don't know how he's going to navigate this situation, but it would be nice if the more intrepid of our journalists uh, start asking these questions a little more intently and insisting on clear answers. And if they are going to keep on getting nothing but four questions, start coordinating because it's time for some scrutiny. It's time for some scrutiny. uh, I'm looking through the chat here and I see we have some people that like to make some interesting comments uh, that I particularly find amusing uh, because uh, the comments end up being confessions, which is kind of interesting. I like it. All right. Um, so let's see here if we have anything here in the chat today, because I see the kids here, Mr. Jim and T Wigmore and stuff. Um, T Wigmore has Ford handed over his phone, making public deals on private phone. Slightly sus. I would say more than slightly sus. Um, Mr. Jim, yes, I saw that. I wonder what Caitlin Jenner is going to have to say now that it is mandated that they be called Bruce again. Uh, I don't know if it's mandated in that way, but yes, that was a chilling part of that. Apparently, uh, there was a tweet I saw yesterday, somebody responding to a tweet that they had put out, and it seemed that Caitlyn Jenner was still praising the now president, where someone was turning around, was like, You did realize what he said, right?" Pretty much. So yeah, I don't know, man. That's gonna be weird. Let's see, what else do we have here? Uh, got from Uncover the News. Poilièvre won't say if he'll back tariffs on U.S. bound oil to combat tariff Trump's 25 threats. So I'm guessing he was asked yet again, and still could not say. Um, I have a saying: uh, once can be a blip, twice can be a coincidence, three starts to be a frickin' pattern. Patterns we ask about. He needs to be asked why it is. Somebody needs to ask him specifically, not ask him, you know, why won't, but just say like, why will you not say? Why will you not give us a clear yes or no? Why are you resisting? Why do you not want to be clear right now? It would seem that this is a moment that calls for clarity. Why are you insisting on being opaque? Boom. Just ask the damn question. Um, wow. Gee. All right, let's see what else do we have here. Doug's face during his Fox interview betrayed him. The words out of his mouth mean nothing, says Kit Tabby G. That is a position that many people do hold. That he's just seeing a very convenient avenue, and that is not unlike Doug. I will have to say that the guy does the thing we keep on saying on the show. He does have a survival instinct. That man, I'll tell you that. Um, so yeah, he shifts. He definitely shifts. He's more nimble than the other ones. Let's just put it that way. Um, the other ones, when they shift, it's often way too late and feels like whiplash. But Doug Ford is able to has this political sense of putting a little toe in the water and you know sort of swimming. Because, plus, I think the fact that you also have to there's a personality thing, right? If you look at the um, for people that are drawing the parallels between, Kamala comes in and replaces Biden, somebody's going to come in and replace Trudeau about 100 days before, Kamala Harris, when Biden was like 100 days before the election. This would be like 100 days before, let's say, tabling of the budget, which could be a confidence vote where the government would fall, right? There's similar parallels in the story. The one major difference between these two narratives, because people are going to go, well, yeah, but Trump won. Yes, Trump won. What's the one major difference between Trump and Poilievre? what the kids call Riz. It's a weird, fucked up, twisted one, but Trump has got some type of Riz. Pierre's Mr. Anti-Charisma. He can't go to the same well. So while that strategy did work enough in the United States to make it such that, you know, uh, President Trump does not have the mandate that he claims that he does have, just by a little bit, by a smidge, but he did not get the majority of votes. He got a plurality of votes. I think we got like 49.9% or something. Just to say he didn't get it, but he didn't get it. He's got a very slim lead in the House that seems somewhat unworkable over the long term. He's got a slim majority in the Senate, but he's got Mitch McConnell out there that's just waiting with a baseball bat to kneecap him at any opportunity. Um, he'll get some stuff through. It's going to be government by executive order and all that kind of stuff. But right, all that stuff is going to happen regardless, though. Right, we have our stuff here. Um, I see a question in the chat here. Is Doug Ford putting the auto sector on the table? Yes, he is. Actually, yes, he is. I know it was asked with a sort of a what about. Uh, well, I shouldn't say that. I won't assume intent here. But yes, he is putting the auto sector on the table. In fact, every single premier of every single province and territory is putting everything they have on the table to put Canada first. Danielle Smith is the only one who is not. That's the problem. We have a guy that's known for divide and conquer, and there's one person that's offering herself up as division. That's the problem. If you're on a team, you can't take the position, okay, I'm on the team so far, so as long as everybody else on the team puts everything they have up first, and I don't have to sacrifice anything or contribute anything, then I'm on the team. And that's not being on the team. That's putting an I in team. Literally putting an I in team. So, yeah, that's a. There's people out there thinking like this. Oh, she's defending. No, no, no. This is a problem. This is a problem, and not only is it a problem, but she actually went on TV and basically said if uh, the 12 other provinces and territories and the federal government together agree that oil is on the table, that we will have a national unity crisis. Well, the only way that's going to happen is if she creates one, which means she literally just threatened us. A provincial premier threatened the entire nation with a national unity crisis if she doesn't get her way on oil. Nothing says putting oil above country. This is not putting party above country. This is not putting Albertans above country. This is putting oil barons above country. This is a problem. She's no hero. She's actually standing up and she's saying she is not one of us. This is a problem. So yes, Doug Ford is putting the auto industry on the table. And Saskatchewan is putting agriculture on the table. And the East and West Coast are putting fisheries on the table. And Quebec's putting hydroelectricity and forestry and mining on the table. So yeah, So are the territories. Everybody's putting everything on the table, except the cheese, who insists on standing alone and couldn't even come back for the meeting. And on that, um, let's just talk about, just mention in passing that does anybody find it weird that Danielle Smith specifically, before spending 6 days in Washington, D.C., either cut her vacation short or vacationed at Mar-a-Lago for 2 days, and then was on vacation in all places of the world, Panama. You got Trump south of the border screaming Greenland, Canada, and Panama, and she's in Mar-a-Lago and vacationing in Panama. Really? Maybe a coincidence. But with 195 countries in the world, what were the odds? Mm. So, Mrs. Smith went to Washington for the inauguration. It's on taxpayers' dollars. She decided that she was going for 6 full days before she had tickets. And then somewhere along the way, she scored sweet, sweet, sweet tickets to the big event. And then um, nobody's really asked specifically from where she got the tickets, from who she got the tickets, if she had to promise anything in exchange for these tickets, this access that she did not have, but then mysteriously gained. Um, there might be questions about that later. Um, and then, irony of irony, well, there's a polar vortex from Canada. You're welcome, world. So the inauguration uh, goes indoors. Now, allegedly, because it was going to be freezing cold out there, but probably more likely because a certain president of the past, that the now current president is not particularly fond of, at least in public, although they were seemed to get along smashingly well at Jimmy Carter's funeral now, did they? But apparently doesn't like. Um, well, you know where I'm going with this. So, everything gets moved inside. The parade gets moved inside. The inaugural ball, not ball, but inauguration swearing in ceremony gets moved inside. And suddenly, her tickets are worthless. And now she has to watch it on TV. Now, I assume that um, I don't know if she's gone there yet, but I would assume that were that the case, because she was scheduled to be at the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C. at some point, according to one of her itineraries a few days ago. Um, um, she thought she was going to be there where it was happening, and turns out she's not there anymore because, well, of course, the rotunda of the Capitol uh, can hold far fewer people than the Washington Mall. So we had to be selective, and she did not make the cut. So if she is now reduced to watching it on TV, um, I'm guessing she sauntered her way to the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C. Now, the part of me that's petty says, I hope they lock the door. I hope they lock the door on her ass. So, no, sorry, you can't sit here after what you did. But We're Canadians. We probably did not do that. But that must have been one hell of an awkward moment. Of course, she's so shameless. She probably just walked in there like she owned the place, like she did nothing wrong. But can you imagine? It, something must have died a little inside if that's what she had to do. Hmm, interesting. So everything happened, and um, it was rather boring. To say, I mean, I remember, uh, Amanda Gordon specifically, like for example, the that young lady who's a poet, right? Um, just like captivating me, right? I remember hearing Maya Angelou at one of them, and I was riveted. Um, this was pretty formulaic and boring, I have to say. Um, he had a speech, fortunately, it was short. Which is probably good because he likes to go on for a while. He didn't seem to improvise much. Um, you can tell the difference between when he's reading and you know, talking off the ad libbing, right? When he's just riffing with the audience, uh, there's differences. Much less effective in one than in the other, and this one was very much reading from the teleprompter, rather disciplined, actually, which is surprising. um, but he kept it together. There were some, you know, it wasn't as dark as the American Carnage one from the first time around. Um, that doesn't mean it was any less disturbing. However, so yeah, um, so this the speech mm, did make some news, but didn't make as much news as it could have. I guess is the best way I can kind of put it. Um, it lacked class, uh, as would be expected. Um, there There was at the end some little sense of stuff that was inspiring, but for the most part, there wasn't much inspiring. There was some whining and some complaining and stuff like that. But there were a couple of passages in there that were really interesting. There was one time where I just like, and the thing with Trump is that sometimes he has whole sections, but sometimes he like yeah, so whole questions that you can like talk about, and then sometimes he just has like he's saying things all together like this, and there's just like one or two words in there that are just inserted in there that slide by, that you might even miss them, and then you like re-listen or somebody else, on social media, and somebody else mentions it. I was, oh my god, how did I miss that? And you're like, wait, what? So one of those was there was a line in there after he talked about the assassination attempts, apparently, and talked about a bullet that ripped through his ear. Um, Still didn't see the actual scar, but the bullet that ripped through his ear, allegedly. There was a line in there: "I was saved by God to make America great again." Mm, okay, that one made my ears prick up, and then a very sad one uh, line. Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. And he did. He signed close to 200 executive orders yesterday. What I said, it's going to be government by executive order. He's off to a flying start. Uh, it seems that in all that lead up time, all the people, the Project 2025 people, all got together and decided that they were going to pre-write a whole bunch of executive orders that would be put in and signed on day one. So, yep, that's pretty much what happened. So there's a lot of those. Then we'll talk a little bit about them, some of the stuff that's there. Um, he declared a national emergency at the southern border and declared a national energy emergency. So, in other words, giving him special permissions to do a variety of other things. So yeah, there's that. And then there's a clip at around that I was going to have a Mr. Grizzly show that where the president-elect talks about transgender people, and as a member of the rainbow community, that sent a chill down my spine. And he was talking about, oh, Mr. Grizzly.
Hey, how you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
I've been better, but I saw that you were still on, and I have to take Lola out in a minute, so I thought I would just pop in for a few minutes to say hello to everybody and see what the temperature is of the lodge today, as there's a lot of stuff going on in this world, and yeah, it's been a strange 24 hours. I watched some of the speech. All he was missing was the chance of Zig Heil at the end of it, because, I mean, the man, well, America, you wanted Gilead, and now you fucking got it. You brought in a despot dictator who is going to rob people of their existence, and I mean that, their existence, because what he said about non-binary or trans individuals, and how he wants to end woke ideology, and how he's dialed it back to 1954, but unlike 1954, when they had marginal tax rates that created a healthy middle class, he wants it to be more like 1854, when the wealthy are in power, and they control everything, as evidenced by all of the oligarchs that sat behind him during his inauguration. 6 billionaires who control 20% of the world's wealth and 100% of the information you get through mainstream media. So, yeah. America, you have dialed it back 150 years. You have no one to blame but yourself. And I feel terrible for the people who will be harmed by his new policies, his new regime, his new theocracy, because this democracy is dead in America. It's done. It's finished. They killed it. By getting him into power, you have ended democracy, because I guarantee you he won't have another election in 4 years. He'll change the rules so he can stay as long as he wants, because he said time and time again that's all he's ever wanted, to stay in power as long as he wants. So he'll stay there till he dies, or somebody removes him physically from this earth. So yeah, I'm feeling like absolute garbage. I just took a shower, which helped a little bit. But yeah, I feel terrible today. There was no way I could get up in time this morning. I was in bed at, I think, 9 o'clock last night, or 10 o'clock. I'm not even sure. I was falling asleep on the couch. I slept most of the day yesterday, and I'm probably going to do much of the same today. But yeah, it's we're in for a strange time over the next 4 years. I don't know how it's going to directly affect us here in Canada. I feel for my American friends and cousins and family members who live down there. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. I mean, the man signed, 200 executive orders yesterday, and he released all of the January 6th terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
Seditionist, treasonous traitors. So, yeah, he's
Yep.
going to do exactly what he wants. He has the power of a king thanks to the Supreme Court of the United States of America, and he's going to do exactly what he wants. And Americans are going to suffer for it horribly. The trading partners like Canada, we will feel the effects of it to a lesser degree, but we will feel the effects of it. Yeah, so there you go, Frankie. Trump signed an executive order recognizing only two sexes.
Mr. Grizzly, I don't know if you're going to stay for a little bit, if you're just doing a quick in and out, but if you're doing a quick in and out, could I get you to show 3 quick clips?
Absolutely. Just send them to me.
Okay, I sent you an email with the link and the first timestamp.
Okay, just give me a minute here.
Right, and it's specifically about this, about Trump and the two sexes thing. But yes, while you're doing that, he did sign executive orders, close to 200. In other words, the wannabe dictator has already issued just under 200 fiats. There's been a series of sweeping immigration executive actions, some of which are already facing legal action by a coalition of civil and immigration rights groups. They're trying to get a court in New Hampshire to declare the order unlawful and block it. The declaration of the emergency at the national emergency at the U.S. southern border calls for the deployment of armed forces, including the National Guard, to the southern border. He says that it's needed to obtain complete operational control, and he's asking the Secretaries of Defense and Homeland Security to keep building various um, structures along the border and to secure detention space and transportation for immigration enforcement operations. He's actually inheriting a relatively quiet border by U.S. standards, while unauthorized crossings hit an all-time high in some point in 2023. That number has sharply dropped to COVID-era figures, in part to Biden's asylum restrictions at the border. He's kicked off the process of ending birthright citizenship. That's
So
going to be great.
does that mean his children have to leave now?
Who knows?
Because most of the children were born to mothers who were not born in the United States of America.
Yeah.
I mean, Ivana Trump was Czech. She didn't get her citizenship until after all the children were born. In Melania, well, we already know about that. So, yeah.
So, but you start that. He says that deportation rates and raids in certain cities will happen for extra-terra. Just reveal when they will start, of course. He's also ended the use of the border app CBP1. So that was something that was, I guess, put in place by Biden to help process people at the border. He's just ending the app to not make it harder for people to use it. As Mr. Grizzly said, he has pardoned some 1,500 January 6th defendants who participated in the riots, including the founder of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, who has been pardoned from a 20-year sentence and freed from it as well. And the founder of the Oath Keepers was not pardoned, but had his 18-year federal sentence commuted. Upon sentencing, the judge had said that he remained an ongoing threat and peril to the United States, but Donald Trump thought it was appropriate to commute a sentence. He also announced a withdrawal of the United States from the World Health Organization, citing its alleged mishandling of the COVID pandemic and failure to adopt reforms, which is hella ironic because if we're talking about mishandling of the COVID pandemic requiring someone to withdraw from you, Donald Trump. He also withdrew from the Paris Agreement on climate, from which he withdrew in his first term, but he did it later in his first term. And there's a period, when you say that you're going to pull out, there's a period that needs to go by before that is in effect. And that did not happen before Biden took office. So Biden canceled that. So Trump did it this time on day one to make sure that the United States are out this time.
Yes.
Thus leaving all the room to China now to lead on global climate, which is great. And of course, he delayed the enforcement of the TikTok ban for 75 days. And that was passed under the Biden administration. It was challenged at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided that yes, indeed, the ban was legal. The ban called for TikTok's parent company ByteDance to sell itself, which is China-based, to sell itself to non-China interests. I keep on hearing different versions of the story, whether it's non-China interests or to an ally of the United States or to to something that's at least half controlled by the United States. They keep hearing different versions, and I don't know if some of those is the version that's in the law and that what Trump is turning it to now. Um, but that went into effect for about like 14 hours, and then Trump reversed it, trying to look like the big hero, trying to say it wants to give it 75 days to be able to sell itself to, I'm going to guess if it's Trump, an American interest.
Of course.
I'm going to
So
guess
that way they can
Elon
control
Musk
everything.
or one of those six, or even Kevin O'Leary might be quite interested in. Who knows, right?
It's all about
but that's how-
controlling the medium so that they control the message.
Exactly. But the great irony about this is that, Mr. Grizzly, do you happen to know who it is that put TikTok on the table in the first place?
Wasn't it Trump a few years back?
Uh-huh. It really was. It was Trump himself.
Yeah.
That suggested.
And all his
back when
minions totally supported him, and now they're all supporting him for not doing it.
Well,
None of these
TikTok,
folks have a backbone. Not a single one of them.
the TikTok users were really not happy about it in any way, shape, or form. But according to Wikipedia, TikTok has been under a de jure nationwide ban in the United States since January 19th, 2025, due to the U.S. government's concerns over potential user data collection and influence operations by the government of the People's Republic of China, a nation that Donald Trump frequently rails against. China. We can't do this for China, right? So, hey, they're making China take a hit, right? Trump should be happy about this. The ban took effect after TikTok chose to shut down its operations in the United States rather than divest from Chinese ownership in response to the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act prior to the ban. Individual states and cities, universities, and governments affiliated devices had restricted TikTok. In 2020, President Donald Trump proposed a ban of the app as he viewed it as a national security threat. In August, he signed an executive order.
There was too many people on the app dissing him. That's why.
Yes.
He took it personally because he's a spineless jellyfish.
Yes. In August, he signed an executive order instructing that ByteDance, the China-based parent company of TikTok, divest from the app, though the order was blocked by a court injunction in September and was reversed by the Biden administration in 2021. However, in 2024, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act was proposed in Congress, again ordering that ByteDance divest due to alleged security concerns and pro-Palestinian bias. The bill was approved by Congress and signed into law by Joe Biden. Following a lawsuit from TikTok, the law was upheld by the Supreme Court. On January 18, 2025, at approximately 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, TikTok suspended its services in the United States after ByteDance refused to divest before the deadline. The following day, after President-elect Trump signaled that he would grant a 90-day extension to TikTok upon being inaugurated, services were restored. So the guy who proposed killing TikTok because China is now trying to save it. Now, apparently, of course, not saving it for China, but that's so somebody else can buy it so that he can control it. But he's the one that proposed killing it, and now he's going to be the person that's going to market himself to all the kids as having saved it.
Of course.
Yeah. You guys got it? Okay.
I have the clip here.
Okay, so this is the first, other than like God saved me so I can make America great again. Which this one put a big chill up and down my spine.
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing to say the least. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's troublesome.
Years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression. I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
Now, irony upon irony here. Hold on. Here's where it gets weird.
Yeah.
We're going to bring back free speech to America. Never left.
Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. Something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based.
Colorblind. Where did we hear that recently?
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Okay. Stop it there. Just stop it
So,
there.
yeah.
So that's the first passage that I want to put a pin in. The next one is immediately after, Mr. Grizzly.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep playing until about 1:44:38.
Just waiting for the applause to die down.
Oh, sorry. That's not sorry. I mistake. I gave you a total misdirection. 144. 141:55 is the next one.
155?
141.
141.
55.
No. Oh, 141:55.
Yeah. I'm going to play the three in sequence in case you have to go, but in case you need to check out rather than just discussing all of them one individually.
Here, I'll just air the next one here.
This is one where he may have caused a diplomatic incident.
President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman and gave Teddy Roosevelt the money for many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this, spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
All right. And then the next one is immediately after, so we'll just go to 1:44:38, and that will be the three clips. But interesting, Panama and China. Just you'll see why this is interesting.
You know what's interesting is Barron Trump looks nothing like his father, but he looks suspiciously like a Slovenian basketball player. He's also 6'9". Just saying, just. Just saying.
Goes to the same hairstylist though.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that was mean.
All right. Barron doesn't look too happy.
No, he does not.
Like he really doesn't. He looks.
Ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation. And right now our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken.
That apparently was the inspiring portion.
I'm sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear.
That apparently was the inspiring portion.
Well, apparently the split the atom part is not accurate either.
Before you now is proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best. From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners, police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and triumphed over every single challenge that they faced. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America, promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We are going to win like never before.
Okay. Where are we at now in the time?
1:48:23.
Okay. That's nowhere along. Okay. Sorry.
No.
That's.
Thank
Did we?
you. In recent years, our nation has suffered.
I was looking. Okay. That was not
To
the.
bring
I
it
guess
back
there was
and
something wrong in my
make it
timestamps. I wasn't looking for that. Okay, we can cut that then.
than ever before.
But there was a section in there because that wasn't it, unfortunately, where Trump started talking and made a list of things, and somewhere in the list of things that he was talking about, there we go. I have it here. He said specifically, keep our children safe, healthy, and disease-free. The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts and plant stars and stripes on planet Mars. And then the camera cut away to Elon Musk.
Yeah.
He was like happy and dancing, going, yeah. Like, that was my line. I wrote it.
Yeah, well, and you got to remember that Elon Musk, people go, well, he's a self-made billionaire. No, he's relied upon socialism. to become wealthy. And some folks may go, what are you talking about? Well, it's the billions of dollars in government contracts and government subsidies that he received to build his companies. Oh, and by the way, he's never created anything in his life. He just bought out other people who created something. And speaking of Elon Musk, there is, I'm not one to talk about rumors, but when it comes from the mouth of the individual who said it, I think it's important to listen to this. Just have a listen to what Herr Trump has to say here, because it's a little bit on the shocking side.
And then he journeyed to Pennsylvania, where he spent like a month and a half campaigning for me in Pennsylvania. And he's a popular guy, and he was very effective. And he knows those computers better than anybody, all those computers, those vote-counting computers. And we ended up winning Pennsylvania like in a landslide, so it was pretty good.
So did he just suggest that Elon rigged the voting machines in Pennsylvania?
It would seem so, yes. That was at his rally the night before.
Yeah, he can't help himself, though, right? He can't help himself.
And then at the rally the night before, too, Elon got on to speak for about 3 or 4 minutes and got up there. And here's the thing I couldn't understand. You're going to get 3 minutes to speak to the largest audience you've ever had and ever will have.
Right.
You think he would have prepared something.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't.
Mm.
And there was a lot of like gushing. Oh, my God. But he got up there and talked about having a mission to Mars. And I guess, again, like these people, I guess, but going up to Mars and planting our flag on it. I mean, all the domination and, climbing on top of things and planting something into something. Talk, this alpha male, all the things. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, and that solves any current world issue that American citizens are struggling with. How? Woohoo! We're going to Mars. We're going to have to take it. I just got my welfare check from you. Woohoo! I'll be able to spend it all on more government subsidies for me. Woohoo! Everybody's going, yeah. Listen, I understand it's inspiring to go to Mars, but does that house your parents? Does that get your kid an education? Does that get you health care? And does that give you a job or put food on? It might give you a job. But somewhere down the road, maybe, if you're one of the people that works in that industry. But I mean, what does that do for you?
Not a damn thing.
So you have him talking about expanding territory, going to Mars. So Elon gets his check. You have 6 of the biggest tech companies there. An AI company, Google, Amazon, Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter, Facebook. They're all there. They're all there, like in prime seating.
Oh, yes.
A few days after, like President Biden warns people about oligarchy, you got the cabinet with the greatest number of billionaires ever, and then other billionaires with a front row seat getting the best seats at the party. I will also note that in this case, it's the first inauguration ever in U.S. history where foreign dignitaries were invited to attend. That was not a thing. Yeah. I think so. We had the leaders of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, of Argentina, Mr. Millet, and Hungary, Mr. Orban.
Yeah, dictators.
Pardon, we're talking over each other, Mr. Grizzly. I'm sorry, what?
Dictators.
Yes.
He invited dictators.
Yes. So Meloni, Millet, Orban, and again, Mr. Anti-China invited Chairman Xi, who did not come, but sent the vice president, Mr. Zhang. Yeah. And then did that TikTok thing on stage in front of Mr. Zhang. So in his speech, maybe laid the seeds for a diplomatic incident. Because I'm pretty sure the vice president of China probably did not appreciate being at that inauguration ceremony to have that being said. I am sure there will be repercussions.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt whatsoever.
And then the two gender thing.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest scapegoat in the book.
Of course.
But he's literally while he's talking about maximum freedom, he's literally throwing the full and not using the weight of the state to persecute people, something he knows something about.
Mm-hmm.
He claims he then announces that he's going to throw the full weight of the state on persecuting probably the most vulnerable.
Freedom, right? It's like I
Free
couldn't
speech,
write
but don't say
yeah.
don't say I'm trans.
Yeah, you're allowed to say anything you want, except unless, of course, if you're a trans person, in which case, no, you're not allowed to say that.
And that thing you're not allowed to say is I'm trans.
Yeah. But free speech, right?
In the same breath.
The irony is dead. It's dead. It's dead.
In the same breath.
Yeah. And then there's people who who fail to see the irony in it. They fail to see the hypocrisy of it because they're like, well, no, that's totally right. No, it's not. You can't have freedom when you restrict the freedom of others. How is that freedom? Please tell me. Tell me like I'm a fifth grader. If you restrict the freedom and choices of other human beings, how is that more freedom? It's not.
Except limiting the freedom of people to limit the freedom of others. Again, yes. Similar to the paradox of tolerance.
Tolerance, yeah. Paradox of tolerance. We will not tolerate the intolerant.
It's like we will not give freedom to people who want to restrict freedom. It's all the similar dynamic. You know, the constant is the same. You just got to change the variables for a lot of these principles here. So yeah, there are a bunch of people in the United States right now with that sentence whose lives just changed overnight. Their worlds just got really dark.
Yes.
Really dark. I think there's about 14,000 people in the U.S. military.
More than that.
No.
Oh, sorry. You just meant. Oh, right. Right. Sorry. Yes. That's probably right.
Yeah. Not sure what happens to them.
I don't know.
But yeah, I'm just so before he left, Biden did a couple of things. He had issued various pardons and stuff like that, and made his farewell speech. And he offered some preemptive pardons to Anthony Fauci and the members of the January 6th Select Committee, among others, to cover bases. He also issued preemptive pardons to Capitol Police officers and General Mark Milley, who was involved in the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
The Quayles were present, which was kind of interesting because Dan Quayle is the vice president to whom Mike Pence ran to for advice as to whether or not he could actually do what Trump was asking. And Dan Quayle told him, no, you can't do that. So somebody someday is going to make a documentary, Dan Quayle Saves America.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll finally be able to get his redemption from Potato. You have to look. You have to know. Yeah, you'd have to have been there, kids, for the Potato thing. Pence was there without Mother.
I suspected. Well, Mother can't stand Trump because he tried to have him hanged. So
he came for her man.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it this way. All right, say what you want about the weirdness.
Yeah.
Of whatever Mike Pence has gone on with Mother, like this. But if you got someone in your life that you're referring to as Mother, right, you don't touch her man.
Simple as that.
I would assume that if somebody's calling his wife Mother, you do not touch her man. That's one man you do not go after. The Mother will fuck you up.
Yeah. Simple as that.
Ronald Reagan also called Nancy Reagan Mother, by the way.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. The Clintons were there. The Shrubs were there. Obama was there without Michelle. Of course, Michelle also was not there for Jimmy Carter's funeral as well. So a lot of people want to read something into that, but she didn't go to the other one either. So
Well, the people who are getting upset at Michelle Obama not attending this inauguration is like, Trump didn't attend Biden's inauguration.
yeah.
So
And
really,
husband still
shouldn't you make bigger hay out of that?
went, and Obama still went.
Yeah.
So, Pelosi was not there. She did not go. Then of course, all those rich people, Cook, Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg, and all of them are there. The Bidens were there.
Mhm.
Melania did show up, wearing such a wide-brimmed hat
It was very bizarre, wasn't it?
that there was absolutely no way for Trump to get in for a
To kiss
kiss.
her. Yeah, that was kind of funny.
Some people were putting comments on Twitter saying touching is extra.
Well,
Then Melania did her best modeling job holding a stack of 2 Bibles for a man to put his hand on while he swore his oath
didn't.
of office, which he did not do. He
So
swore the oath
shouldn't
of
the
office. He
Christians
didn't
be
put his hand
making
on the
hay of
Bible.
that? They should be making hay of that one because he didn't swear on the Bible.
He didn't swear on the Bible. And I think I remember back in about 16 years ago, President Obama's first swearing in where Justice Roberts screwed up a couple words in the oath.
Mhm.
And then everybody was like, he's not real president yet. He's not the real president yet. He didn't say it exactly. So they actually did another one out of abundance of caution. Like this. And
Yeah, so they
Jonathan
were
Roberts
afraid.
returned, okay, we'll do this again. And then Obama said, and we'll do it very slowly. Right? So he didn't put his hand on the damn Bibles. There were 2 of them.
2 of them. So that should tell you that he is not the president because he clearly didn't, take the oath
Or he
correctly.
didn't swear an oath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Is Trump, if that's the way the game is played, does he need a do-over too? Where we keep the camera focused right on the Bibles to make sure his hand doesn't like hover or levitate over it, but actually like makes contact and presses in?
It's kind of shocking to me that nobody said anything to him about that. Like, hey, you're supposed to.
Tap him on the phone. So she just stood there holding 2 Bibles, like decoration.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So there's plenty for the gossip rags as well. But in terms of an inauguration speech, I mean, you heard the couple of passages, right?
Mhm.
Compare and contrast, right? America has a certain promise, and we will do this, and we will achieve this. And it's dark time, like, and they came after me, and they persecuted me. So it's still like nothing's changed. Nothing's changed from term 1. He's more ambitious. He's got a couple of new pet projects, something like that. But there's nothing new. The only thing that might happen here is if you ever saw the movie Scream 2, where they had in Scream, they had the rules for the horror movie. But in Scream
Right.
2, they have the rules for the sequel. It's always the body count is always higher. The death scenes are always much more elaborate with more blood and gore. Right? So more shocking, more people's lives upended, more collaborators, more elaborate schemes. But the same show.
Mhm.
Like I said, and the most important rule of all, the killer always comes back to life for one last scare.
Of course.
Welcome to Trump 2.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is the one last scare.
Well, we should be so lucky.
Yeah. God. Does that mean we can have sex, drink, or do drugs now? Since we're in the sequel and still survive.
Just a second. All right, I
All
gotta
right.
go. I gotta take load out, so I'm gonna hop out. You can end the show at your leisure.
Okay.
I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully,
Thanks
I'm
for
doing
joining
better
in.
than I am today. But take care. I'll see you soon.
Ah, what a delightful treat. We got Mr. Grizzly. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much all the stuff, the major stuff. It was, like I said, there were words and things that were said that were concerning and disturbing. Um, but the whole thing itself was slightly was pretty uneventful. Thank God it was short. um, with all of that, coming back to Canada, um, out of all the executive orders that he did sign, he did not sign the one on the first day imposing the 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada. In fact, he had not talked about it at all day until he was signing some executive orders. And then someone asked him about that. And then it's like, oh, yeah, we're thinking of tariffs of 25% on Mexico and Canada. So basically, no change again because the initial one is that he might and he's thinking of. So it's still possibly maybe stuff that's not solid. And it's still 25%. So, as Dominique Leblanc pretty much said, there's nothing new today than was, you know, from the other day before. Pardon me, I have to sneeze. Oh, pardon me. That one rattled my brain a little bit. So, no change in there. What was really interesting is that because he had not said anything up until that point, you had Daniel Smith all over the Twitter already trying to claim some type of victory, um, almost like uh, taking credit, almost like it was all the stuff that she did that made it such that Trump didn't talk about 25% tariffs. And like, are you kidding? I mean, according to reports, you got about like 2 minutes with him, and you spent the entire time chasing him in order to get to, the selfies and all that kind of stuff. Um, but assuming that's not true, assuming you got more time, just that those couple little meetings was enough. You have Rick Bell here uh, going, latest, no tariffs against Canada for now. Smith must be feeling good. The Sunday interview, Daniel Smith stands firm, slams Trudeau as Trump takes power. Really? Really? Daniel Smith saved us. They were going with that. They actually wrote about it. Got him right here. Hold on, let's see. Calgary Herald by Rick Bell. And the title, Bell, Trump's tariff U-turn ruined Daniel Smith's day and ours. So I guess this one was maybe last updated 10 hours ago. Yes, because that was probably not the original one that he had written. There we go. Let's go for this one. So yes, one day ago, this is the first one. Bell, Daniel Smith stands firm, slams Trudeau, and Trump takes power. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith is not backing down. She's not bothered in the least when some people don't like what she's doing, even call her a traitor. In a Sunday interview with Postmedia, Smith has a message for Albertans and Canadians, and yes, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Alberta is not going to lie down and play dead. Yeah, we realize that you're trying to kill us. Duh. The Premier of Alberta remains resolute. Smith will not back any Trudeau government tax on Alberta oil going to the United States. She sees it as a mammoth cash grab by the federal Liberals to buy votes. Smith will not back any Trudeau government move to block Alberta oil going from the United States. I'm not sure he needs her permission, actually, but anyway. She sees her job is to protect and promote Alberta's economy. Quote, when I'm defending Alberta, I will never back down, says Smith. I campaign on putting Alberta first, and this is what it looks like. We're not going to sacrifice Alberta's interests for the short-term political interests of the current Prime Minister. And your 12 other provincial and territorial colleagues who agree with them as well. Right, Daniel Smith? And the 12 others, right? Smith points to the meeting Canada premiers had with Trudeau, where it was decided everything was on the table to fight any tariffs put on Canadian goods by incoming American President Donald Trump. She did not agree. Smith says meetings with the Prime Minister and the premiers aren't followed with a public statement when one member is unhappy with the wording. Quote, I expressed many, many times I absolutely could not support an export tariff on Alberta energy with all the dollars going to Ottawa to be distributed elsewhere. I made it clear multiple times, and yet the Prime Minister wouldn't take that off the table, and neither would the other premiers. Neither would the other premiers, Danielle. Not just the Prime Minister. I'm simply not going to allow the Prime Minister to ask us to write a blank check. The Prime Minister and all the premiers except you. We're just not going to go there. Smith does some arithmetic sure to enrage many Albertans. I can do the math as well as anyone else, says Smith. No, she can't, actually. I think claiming that she had over 50% of the CVP coming to her was probably proof of that she cannot do the math as well as anyone else. She literally, really, really can't. Quote, if there was a Trudeau tax of 25% on 150 billion worth of energy exports, that would generate about 40 billion. I can see what they're doing. They're trying to create another equalization program to then take those dollars and be able to use them to buy votes in other jurisdictions outside of Alberta. Why would we agree to something like that? Smith then says it's Trudeau destroying the national unity, not her. Realize that she also, they still get the $150 billion though for the, right? They're not losing money on their energy exports. This is like additional money. So, and it's coming from a tariff policy to respond to another nation. So she's treating this like she thinks that this is her money. The tariff money, because it comes from oil, is Alberta money as well. And she seems to be talking as if she thinks she wouldn't get any of that money. When all the premiers and the Prime Minister together just said that not one region and not one sector should be singled out, either for exclusion or for being hit heavier. So a portion of that equalization she's calling, which is not money. It's not equalization money when you have tariffs and you're using some money to compensate people who are being negatively affected in order to keep certain industries alive. That's not equalization. It's not based on a province's fiscal capacity to pay. It depends on the impact of the tariffs on specific industries. It's nowhere near the same thing. She's outright lying. Why would we agree to something like that? She's asking. You're not being asked to agree to something like that, Danielle. You're not. A unified approach. So this, she said, then it goes on. Smith then says it's Trudeau that's destroying national unity, not her. No, it's you. Quote, a unified approach means he actually takes input and listens to the premiers. He didn't want us to do that. Didn't want to do that. No, he listened to premiers. He listened to 12 of them. You're the one that didn't listen to the other premiers. Quote, I'm gravely dismayed the Liberals are creating so much division. You can't single out a single province for this kind of treatment. That creates disunity. It's not a Team Canada approach. That's a Team Trudeau approach. And that's something we've come to expect from this Prime Minister. So I'm going to make sure we have our voice very well heard. Oh, no, don't worry, Danielle. You have no problem having your voice heard. You're rather loud and you talk a lot. Again, you don't want to be heard. You want to be obeyed. There was 14 entities around that table, 10 provincial premiers, 3 territorial premiers, and 1 prime minister. Only you have a problem. This is not people doing things to you. This is not people doing things to Alberta. This is not people singling you out. This is you excluding yourself from the rest of the group and then claiming you're being singled out. You have removed yourself from the group. That's not the same thing. Smith talks about an export tax on Alberta oil now in the history books. The name of Pierre Trudeau, the Prime Minister's father, comes up along with this much hated in Alberta National Energy Program, the NEP. Ironically, the federal Conservatives seem to be asking for one. Jobs lost, bankruptcies, businesses shut down, people losing their homes, people losing their lives. We're not going down that road. So that was a whole screed from her. I mean, basically, he's just quoting her here. We've seen that before. We've seen that before under his father, and we're certainly not going to allow another Trudeau to do that to our province. And why would he ask Alberta to do something he would never ask Quebec to do? He would never ask Ontario to do. He is asking them to do these things for the equivalents in their provinces. Smith adds Canada needs a new government, quote, to put all of Canada on an equal footing and take a positive approach to diplomatic relationships with the United States. They are putting all of Canada on an equal footing. They're just asking you to do the same thing everybody else is doing, Danielle. We're not prepared to torch our relationship with the United States. Nobody's asking you to. We're just asking you to stand up for Canada. As for Trudeau, quote, I can tell you, Rick, I've got a countdown clock on my app counting down the days to his retirement. We're at 49 days and counting. Yeah, him going is not going to change that, Danielle. It's not going to change the fact that the 12 other premiers all agree that oil is on the table. So you can count your 49 days. You're still going to have the same problem. Smith, who's in Washington, D.C. for the Trump inauguration, says she's leading with diplomacy, talking to many U.S. political players, figuring out what the Americans want and what lines up with Canada's interest. That's a lie. She's not looking out for Canada's interests at all. The other stuff is part, but she's not looking for what lines up with Canada's interests. That's a lie. She's explaining to those stateside how Canada should be treated as a special case. Again, she doesn't mean Canada. She means Alberta. Smith feels that she's getting very positive reception. Quote, I think that's going to pay dividends. The Trudeau era is coming to a close. There's a new era going to begin, says the Alberta Premier. I think with the passage of time, Canadians will see we're not just standing up for Alberta jobs and Alberta industries, we're standing up for all of Canada. No, she's not. she just is not. So she was trying to take credit for this, and she's going through Rick Bell, who was going to give her credit for all of this. It couldn't have been everything that all of everybody else in Canada has done that prevented the tariffs from being announced on day one, right? And that there was no talk of tariffs at all around the time that this was written. Nothing at all. That was all her. And then Trump again mentioned that tariffs, he was still considering them. And that they might start somewhere around February 1st, actually. Seem to be some words. Well, Rick Bell, the very next day, updated 10 hours ago. Trump's tariff U-turn ruined Danielle Smith's day and ours. Just when you think President Donald Trump is going one way, he's going another. Have you not paid attention the first time around, Mr. Bell? Quote, just when you think President Donald Trump is going one way, he's going another. And a column has to be rewritten on the fly. Sorry, you can't rewrite a column in 15 minutes. With Trump, you never know until you know, and then you still don't really know. Earlier on Monday, caution was in the air. Quite rightly, no one was spiking the ball. Really? No one was doing a touchdown dance. Really? No one was claiming mission accomplished. Really? Okay. But we were told Canadian goods, including Alberta oil and gas, were not being hit with a 25% tariff if they were heading stateside. No, you were not told that. You were not told that Canadian goods, including Alberta oil and gas, were not being hit with 25. You weren't told that they were not being hit. You just were told that they weren't being hit on day one. But not at all. Not at all. That was the news Monday morning. Big news, good news, hopeful news. That you were, so literally, no one was spiking the ball. No one was doing a touchdown dance. No one was claiming mission accomplished. But we were told that they were not being hit with a 25% tariff at all, which never happened. So yes, you were spiking the ball. Or your English language comprehension skills are really not that great, and maybe you should invest in a couple of Q-tips. Because it was very clear that nobody said that you were not going to be hit. So he's framing this as Danielle Smith was told that she would not be hit, and then Trump changed his mind. And that's why Danielle looks stupid today. Not because Danielle was running all around to the press claiming a victory lap, that she had gotten it done. No, Trump screwed her over. Okay, sure. That was the news Monday morning. Big news, good news, hopeful news, and exclusive with one of the world's most prestigious newspapers. We all knew tariffs could be unleashed by Trump one day, but not this day. What a difference a few hours makes. Earlier, we are told U.S. federal agencies will look into how trade works between the United States and Canada, among others. There's even a memo outlining the plan. Then Trump gets a question late in the day. Ask Trump a question, and you never know how the dice will roll. And that's the thing here, is that somewhere in the day, there was some word, and there was even articles written about it. I believe iPolitics might even had something on that. It seemed that they were talking more, not so much about tariffs as well, but that it might be like a process of investigating things, of looking things. It was a pledge. That they would only sign a memorandum telling federal agencies to study trade issues, including alleged unfair trade and currency practices by Canada, Mexico, and China. Um, so that was the sort of feeling that they were going to get. But and I guess they ran with that. But again, that's what Trump's people were saying. And as we know with Trump, the only thing that matters is what Trump is saying and what is said. And again, as everybody said, it can change from day to day. So, yeah, that's the whole gambit didn't really work out for her. So then Rick Bell continues here, because there was even a memo outlining the plan, how they were going to negotiate and all that. And then Trump gets the question late in the day. Ask Trump a question, and you never know how the dice will roll. The president goes back to talking about drugs being across Canada, the Canadian border, and a 25% tariff bound on U.S.-bound Canadian goods, and he's thinking of doing that on February 1st. Say what? Alberta Premier Danielle Smith looked like she was feeling good. Her approach seemed to be showing dividends. It was seen as a big day for Team Alberta. But nobody was spiking the ball and claiming mission accomplished. And she's doing all of this for Canada. After all, Smith knows most of the battle is showing up, and she has showed up. She went, no, most of the battle is not showing up. She went to Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort and talked to him there and talked to him at his golf club. She talked to heavy hitters in Trump's world. She even listened to Trump play ABBA over the loudspeakers. Her critics slammed her. She was kissing butt. She was bending the knee to Trump. She was a bootlicker. Danielle Smith was a traitor, so they said. She's not a traitor because she went down to visit with Trump. She was a traitor because she didn't sign on to the communique with the rest of the premiers. Difference. But diplomacy is not treason. Trying to get someone planning an act that would harm the people you represent to reverse course or at least go in a different direction does not make you a traitor. Quite the opposite. Yes, but going your own way to do it rather than joining the rest of the team that's actually working on the exact same mission and then doing it in a way that goes to complete cross and counter purpose to everybody else that's on the team is Mr. Bell. It's amazing how they managed to sanitize everything that's being done and narrow the lens and choose when history starts and all that to frame it all to make her look like the hero. It's all the prime minister doing this. But what about the premiers who agree with the prime minister? No, let's not talk about them. It's just all the prime minister. It's amazing. I'm just doing what everybody would do. Yes. All the premiers are doing that type of stuff, working their Rolodexes and calling people. But none of them are entering a negotiation and saying, hey, We've got something that we're negotiating for, and just wanted to let you know before we start telling you everything, our biggest weapon in our toolbox, yeah, we're not gonna use that, so have fun." Why would you say that? Why would you be asking that? Why would you be asking for that in public? Why would you be seen as going down? If you had been tasked by the Council of the Federation to go down and lobby Trump to do this for all of Canada on behalf of them, that would be one thing, but you're flying on your own. Just hearing Rita McNeil all of a sudden. Anyway, jeez. But diplomacy is not treason. Trying to get someone to planning an act that would harm the people you represent to reverse course or at least go in a different direction does not make you a traitor. Quite the opposite. It's called doing your job. And Trudeau and his approach was getting nowhere. Really? Really? Prime Minister and 12 other premiers working all their phones, whatnot, and then there's no mention of it on that day up until a journalist asked. And it's Daniel Smith alone who did that. It wasn't anything having to do with the coordinated approach of everyone else in the country. Really? Come on. Come on. No. And Trudeau and his approach was getting nowhere. Why would it? Trudeau is mocked by Trump, and the Liberals are almost certainly headed out the door. So diplomacy seems to be the route. It could still work or not. But these critics attacking Smith were no doubt blinded by their hatred of Trump, of conservatives, of Smith, but for some of them scratched just below the surface hatred of Alberta. Oh, yes, yes, yes. We all hate everything all the time. Talking about us. Airy statements of confession. We all hate everything about so much so that we can't even see or think straight. We are so consumed by our hate. We're talking about the person that can't keep Justin Trudeau's name out of her mouth, who's going rogue, who will not sign on to anything that 13 other people are signing on to. That's all because we hate them, not because she hates us. She hates us. I think we need to get it clear in our head that she hates us. She threatened us. And she is offering herself up as the point of division. She is our weakest link. And if the UCP had any sense, party brass, they would be starting moves to get her out. This is not acceptable. And this type of journalism, trying to frame it, is also not acceptable. Just... They hated how Smith wouldn't play ball with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his blowhard buddy, Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Smith wouldn't throw the oil patch under the bus. Yes, she threw Canada under the bus. She pledged to fight Trudeau if he tried to sacrifice oil and gas. She wants to fight Trudeau more than the man who's musing aloud about economic union through economic force. She went and had her hair done to make herself pretty for him. But she's fighting with our Prime Minister. But she's not the traitor. She's not the disloyal one. Right? Everybody else hates her, and they can't see her genius. All of this elaborate setup because she ran her mouth too damn quickly and said, I did it. There will be no tariffs. And that was not the case. Nobody ever promised her that. She just made it up. You know, this is the same Trudeau who time and time again made it tougher for Canada's biggest export to the United States to do business. Oh, really? He built you a pipeline. And then there were two other things. with regards to gas. You've never been producing more oil. You've never had a higher output. You've never been making more money out of it. But yes, Trudeau, who time and time again made it tougher for Canada's biggest export to the United States to do business. Well, you got the leader of the opposition saying, hey, it's not fair, man. Trudeau's landlocked all our oil. They've never done anything whatsoever to help us get our oil. This from, again, the guy who is part of the government that did not get 1 inch of pipeline to Tidewater built. The nation that did nothing, not the nation, the party that did nothing to diversify the sources of our oil, the nation that is still the nation, I keep on calling it the nation, the party that is still calling for building Keystone XL while complaining that all our oil is going south rather than trying to find a way to get social acceptability and buy-in, particularly for the province of Quebec, for anything like Energy East. If we were going to be doing something like that. Like this is, it's absolutely ridiculous what it is that they're asking for here, and what it is that they're trying to claim, how it is that they're trying to paint this situation here. Now, so this is the same Trudeau who time and time again made it tougher for Canada's biggest export to the United States to do business. Now he wants to use it on his chessboard. The Premier advocated for the oil and gas industry. She wants more oil production, more oil going to the United States. Everybody here is on board, it seems. They want an emissions cap, but not a production cap. If you can cap the emissions, you can produce more. So nobody is trying in Canada, technically, is trying to stop more oil production. We're trying to stop more oil production under the circumstances that we are doing it now. But if we can keep on making it cleaner and better and cleaner and better and cleaner and better, there's nobody in the Liberal Party that's trying to stop that. Maybe it would be different if the Greens were running things, maybe if with the NDP, but there's nobody among the Liberal Party that's threatening that. It's literally a lie. It's one of the reasons the Green Party has trouble with the Liberal Party. It's because they're not doing that. She wants Canadian politicians to stop with the threats and the name calling. It doesn't work with Trump. In her words, she's not prepared to torch the relationship with the Americans. Smith also does not believe Trudeau is the one to tell Alberta's story. No kidding. He's not trying to. So she has told the Alberta story and how Alberta oil is what the U.S. needs. She told politicians close to Trump. She spoke to officials close to Trump. A wise nonpartisan who knows the ins and outs of the political game tells me if anybody made a difference on Trump's tariff issue, it was Smith. That's what Bill bases it on. A wise nonpartisan. That's who we get. Could have just made that up. And that's the opinion of one. And how would that one wise nonpartisan know? Were they there when she was talking with him? Did they know how effective she was? Did she make a really compelling case in 15 words or less? Or did she just go, hi, Donald, it's so nice to meet you. Come on, please. With the unpredictable Trump, a leader has to keep talking. Many thought the great thing about no tariffs this day is it would buy some time so Canadians could finally toss the Liberals and put in a new government that isn't a punchline for Trump and a bad joke here. We did buy time. We got till at least February 1st. Mr. Bell. And then Trump talks about February 1st tariffs, and Chaos is back out in the script. We're looking for someone who can get us that touchdown. No, Chaos is not back in the script. Chaos never left the script. The script was 25% tariffs on day one. We did not get 25% tariffs on day one. Now people are musing about February 1st. So there was a delay, and something was effective, at least in the short term. And it was not Danielle Smith. I can assure you, it was not Danielle Smith. It was not Danielle Smith running to Donald Trump saying, please, please, please don't touch our oil, versus 12 other premiers and the prime minister of a G7 nation turning around and saying, we might be smaller than you, but your trade with us is still more than with France and the UK and several other countries combined. And while, yes, we understand that we, trade with us is only this percent of your GDP, it would be the largest economic trade hit that you will have taken as a country in your history. And for the 36 states in the United States of America, whose number one trading partner is Canada, if we're strategic about it, we could really affect them. And that could make your life a little uncomfortable at home. We don't have a lot, but we do have a few things. And this Rick Bell guy here wants us to believe that Danielle Smith going over there begging Donald Trump to not touch oil is what saved it, rather than all of Canada turning around saying, those 36 states, some of them, I assume, vote Republican. Sure would be a shame if they didn't do that again come next midterms. But they want us to believe it's Danielle Smith. And all because she looks like a fool, because she did spike the ball. She ran to Rick Bell and said, I did it. Jeez. That's whiplash. That is some strong whiplash. And to finish off this segment, bit of a extra packed show for you today here, Kids and Cubs. But to finish off that segment, this is from Max Fawcett here, talking about the Conservatives and the National Energy Program. He's got an article out there called Canada's Conservatives Want Their Own National Energy Program, which is kind of ironic when you think about it, because once again, it'll be a situation that a Trudeau Liberal gave them a national energy program, and then they said they didn't want it and railed against it and made mythology over it for about 45 years or so. And then at the exact same time as another Trudeau Liberal gives them the pipeline to Tidewater that they had always wanted, and again are complaining about like no Trudeau has ever done anything good for them. So it's not that they never wanted a national energy program all those years ago. They just didn't want it from a Liberal named Trudeau. And just like today, it's not like they never wanted a pipeline to Tidewater. They just didn't want it to be given it to them by a Liberal named Trudeau. Oh my, how history rhymes. And oddly enough, Max Fawcett starts with his column with, history may often rhyme, but it gets downright poetic when it comes to the Trudeaus and the Alberta oil and gas industry. Take Pierre Trudeau's National Energy Program, which has been the bête noire of Albertans for more than 40 years now. It sought to grow Canada's oil sands sector, build pipelines from coast to coast, and wean the country off its dependence on the United States, and enraged Albertans to no end. They responded to his proposed program by turning him into a pariah and holding him personally responsible for the economic turmoil associated with the spike in interest rates and subsequent crash in oil prices that began in 1981. In 2025, Albertans might be even more irate about the latest Prime Minister Trudeau's spuriously correlated impact on their oil and gas industry, one that, it's worth mentioning, has posted record high production, revenue, and profits over the last 3 years. They've turned in droves to another federal political leader named Pierre, one who's proposing something that sounds an awful lot like a national energy program. Quote, I intend to approve refineries in I'm tripping over my tongue today. I apologize, Kids and Cubs, and especially for audio listeners. I intend to approve refineries and LNG plants and hopefully pipelines so I can bring that production back to Canada and make us more energy independent, Pierre Poilièvre told Jordan Peterson during their recent interview. Energy East, the very same pipeline connecting Western Canadian oil fields with Eastern Canadian demand markets that Trudeau first proposed, is at the heart of this vision. If irony was a marketable commodity, Canada would be able to pay off its national debt right now. The similarities here are striking. Poilièvre, for example, recently suggested that we should build refineries in Canada and stop buying imports from the United States. Quote, "You're buying our oil at a discount," he said last week. "We should build more refineries and bypass you." As it happens, the National Energy Program proposed the construction of new refineries in Saskatchewan and Alberta, even promising to incentivize the conversion of existing refineries so they could process more heavy Canadian oil coming out from the oil sands. That bastard. Poilievre isn't the only Conservative politician pining for a national energy program of their own. As Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said in recent weeks, quote, "We also urge our entire nation to use this tariff threat as an opportunity to correct the misguided direction of this country and commence multiple infrastructure projects that focus on developing, upgrading, and exporting our oil, gas, and other natural resources instead of effectively landlocking them and keeping us fully reliant on one primary customer." Why did the Harper Conservatives not do that during their decade in power? This is not a new phenomenon. It's not like our oil wasn't landlocked all this time and then Trudeau came along and landlocked it. But they want to present it as this is something that Trudeau has done. It's all because of Trudeau that we're forced to sell it to one person. It isn't because we decided as a country some time ago that all we're going to do is pull it off the ground and then ship it somewhere and not do anything else. And then apparently when an opportunity came around to build the infrastructure so that we could do more transformation of our resources right here in the country, everybody said, no. Are you crazy? We're making good money just pulling it out of the ground and just shipping it and patting ourselves on the back for being economic geniuses for not doing any value added whatsoever. Why do you want to ruin a good gig? The things they're asking for, somebody saw the future and was planning it, and they rejected it. And I guess maybe they saw how the world went, that they could have used it, and then they got mad and decided to make it our fault that they said no. I mean, I don't know what went on there, how the mythology happened, but I mean, they're asking for what was promised, what was advanced then, which is really weird. Right. So when Pierre talks about our resources effectively being landlocked, keeping us fully reliant on one primary customer, Max continues, this pretends that the current Liberal government didn't sacrifice enormous amounts of political capital to get the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion built, the first meaningful increase in our export capacity on the Pacific coast since the 1950s. But the Conservatives want you to believe that it's all Trudeau's fault that our stuff is landlocked. He's the only person that's managed to do something to unlandlock since the 1950s. Come on. Again, these people are utterly shameless. It ignores the fact that LNG Canada, the single biggest energy project in Canadian history, will begin shipping to customers in Asia later this year, and it completely eludes the fact that under Stephen Harper's government, the oil and gas industry's dependence on U.S. markets was significantly increased through the approval and construction of projects like Keystone and the Alberta Clipper. The original national energy program and the one the Conservatives like Pierre and Smith are envisioning aren't exactly the same. Pierre Trudeau's approach focused heavily on reducing the cost of energy for Canadians, largely through the creation of a made-in-Canada price that would remain below world oil prices. That was framed in Alberta as an attempt to steal their riches and buy votes in Eastern Canada, even though subsequent analysis has shown that the NEP, and particularly its incentives for oil sands crudes, would have been a boon for Alberta. The first Trudeau was trying to help. He was trying to set them up. But somebody vilified that somewhere along the way, and they rejected it. Even so, there's no question that one of its goals was reducing the cost of gasoline and living for Canadians across the country, along with increasing the federal government's share of petroleum-related revenue. This time around, there will be no such concerns. Instead, it's all about using national security as a fig leaf for Alberta's long-standing desire to build more pipelines to the west and east coasts that could enable the doubling in oil production that Danielle Smith has talked about repeatedly. This ends as ever, always. The ends, as ever, always justify the means. Never mind that, as the Financial Times reported this week, China may have already hit peak oil. Never mind that oil demand in Europe is in clear and irreversible decline. And never mind that Donald Trump has swore up and down that he intends to massively increase American oil production, a pledge that could be met with a similar surge in OPEC supplies that would in turn collapse global oil prices. For Canada's new petronationalists, trifling things like supply and demand are apparently problems for another day. Canada should not trade our dependence on one country for dependence on ever-increasing global oil demand. The real national energy program we need right now would massively reduce the oil and gas industry's carbon emissions, as it has pledged to do repeatedly, and helps prepare Canada for a world in which barrels of oil are priced at least in part on their carbon intensity. Europe has already signaled that it's prepared to head in that direction. After all, while incoming U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has signaled his openness to so-called carbon tariffs in America, we need a program that focuses on increasing our imports of the key minerals and clean technology that will drive the global energy transition. And that's a really interesting sentence in that article, because conservatives often make the position that the United States is doing so well at reducing their emissions and they don't have carbon pricing. And look at this. Trump's appointed U.S. Treasury Secretary, even though Trump is pulling out of the Paris Accord, has signaled openness to so-called carbon tariffs in America. Interesting. Energy independence is a laudable and important objective for Canada, and it's one we should pursue, but it means something very different than it did when Pierre Trudeau was in power. In the end, Pierre Poilièvre's national energy program would end up being an even bigger disaster for Alberta's oil and gas industry than Alberta ever imagined Trudeau was. It's a great piece here from Max Fawcett on that. Again, I keep on saying, Pierre's in trouble. He's in trouble. He's reduced to proposing an NEP. He wants a massive infrastructure project for us to take a whole bunch of billions of dollars of our money and blow it into pipelines and building export terminals for an industry that may have already peaked. With one of our largest global competitors south of us claiming that they're going to ramp it up as well, their production. So let's say we indulge them and we spend all this money on this stuff and then we have no place to sell it. What do we do with the hundreds of billions of dollars that we just thrown in there? They're gone on white elephants. And then what's the opportunity cost for all the other things we could have spent those hundreds of billions of dollars on? Like, for example, renewables, where we could actually export the energy. But Danielle Smith has abandoned renewables altogether. The United States is pulling out of the Paris Accord. China is going to be left to dominate that section, that industry. I mean, you can't keep on telling us that you're anti-China, but not wanting to do anything to occupy any space in the renewables sector of the economy, global economy. That just makes absolutely no sense to me. So yeah, the conservatives, there seems to be no doubt that Poilièvre and Danielle Smith are exactly on the same team, because he's proposing a federal policy that would give Danielle Smith specifically what she wants. I mean, this could have been written in Alberta. But Pierre can't say it. Pierre can't say oil is off the table, because it will cost him a lot. Things are getting interesting, kids and cubs. Things are getting interesting. All right. I think we have a show. I didn't expect to go on this long, actually, this morning, kids and cubs. So I'm actually, wow. Hopefully, not sure if all of you stayed for all of that. Unfortunately, I was reading the articles and bringing up the information, so I was not able to focus on the chat as much today as I would normally. But that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you enjoyed listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. Now, if you would like to, for example, make sure that you do not miss an episode of our show, especially if you're listening on the podcast version. You don't have to. Thanks to the Ray Girl, because she has sponsored our pod page. And if you're watching now, you can scan that QR code and it will bring you right there. But if you're listening, that's podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters, hyphen between each one of those words. And if you click on subscribe there, when we have an audio podcast out and it's all ready, we send it directly to you and you don't have to go looking for it. So we hope that that little bit of convenience makes things just a little touch easier for you. Now, if you would like to support us in other ways, dear kids, you can do that by surfing on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where there you will find Kit Elaine and Kit Cassie urging you to click our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. They're there. Click all three of them if you like. Get happy with them. We like it when you do. It helps us with the algorithm, actually. So we appreciate everything that you are able to do for us. Thank you so very much. Now, if you would like to support us in other ways, if you feel, for example, that I've done a pretty good job over the last 2 days doing this solo. Well, not completely solo because Mr. Grizzly was able to pop in today, so and help a bit. Definitely improved the show. So, but if you think that we did do a good job the last couple of days, particularly covering the Trump stuff, we would appreciate a little pat on the shoulder in the form of a cup of hot chocolate for yours truly, Mr. Beaver, or a cup of coffee for Mr. Grizzly. And you can do that by scanning the QR code that just appeared, which will bring you to our coffee page. If you are listening, that's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And if you go there, you will find the Emergency Hydration Fund tip jar, where you can leave us a little something to let us know that you support us and encourage us to do more. So we appreciate you for everything that you're able to contribute. Now, sorry, you have to have a sip of water here. My voice is leaving on me. There we go. If you are not able to support us financially, please do not worry, because the gift of your attention participation is the gift that means the most to us. And we love to hear from you. So please write to us at truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com or at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge at True Eager on Twitter, also at True Eager, our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver. That's our original home. And if you are listening to us on YouTube, well, we have the comment section here. We do read everything. We're not able to get back to everyone, but we do take everything in. And it's we love your comments because a lot of them are very substantive and we learn a lot from them. So thank you so much. We really appreciate your participation. Because democracy is something that you do, of course, Kids and Cubs, there's a Quebec Liberal leadership race. There's not only a federal one, but the Liberal Party in the province of Quebec has started a leadership race. So please look into that to find information about your candidates. Pour mes amis au Québec, il y a la course au leadership du Parti libéral. Alors, veuillez prendre un moment pour consulter et en apprendre plus sur tous les candidats qui sont là et pour absolument pour vous inscrire aussi. To make sure to register for that. At the federal level as well, for the Liberal leadership vote, you have until the 27th, so that's 6 more days. Go to liberal.ca and make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure that the Liberal Party puts up the best candidate possible for the general election, which could come earlier, but looks like it might be a little later now, thanks to Doug Ford. But still, make sure that you get in there. This is one that matters because technically, as Mr. Grizzly says, in our weird Westminster parliamentary system, you usually never get a chance to vote directly for the Prime Minister, but this time you will, at least for however long this Parliament lasts before we go into an election. So, why not? It's never a bad day to vote, right? All right. Words of wisdom, Kits and Cubs. I think the words of wisdom are going to be the same thing that I sort of start off the show with. Try to we are going to get a lot of cortisol stimulation from the United States and from people here in Canada that are going to be looking at what he's doing and then try to copycat him and imitate him, especially if they see that it works. So just remember, try to make the first thing in your day or the first thing you talk about something that is either meaningful to you or that brings you joy or happiness or that improves your day before giving space to this kind of stuff. Okay? Let's nourish and protect our souls first, right? And then, make sure that we build ourselves up to then tackle on and take on the day as it is needed, but to nourish the soul, okay, and protect it. Right? There are some days that are too much. There are some days that are too much, and that's fine. Right? That's fine. All right, kids and cubs. I think we've done the words of wisdom, but is democracy something that you do? So I guess that means I need to cue myself a little bit of cock. So here we go. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, have a little dad joke for you. Heard it at the curling club, actually, so this one's not from the book. How do you attract a Trump supporter? With a magnet. Ah. All right, kids and cubs. Hey, you got to laugh a little bit. Have a beaverific day.